Hey, good evening. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Hey, everybody, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you're at. Welcome to week 14 of Violent Python. We are really close to being complete. We got this week and then next week as we start to really get to the end of this. I'll also start talking about the final, not in the lecture tonight. However, I'll be posting some details to kind of help you prep for it. You'll get a week to essentially complete the final. So it isn't one of those things where you show up and you're going to get 2 hours or a couple hours to do it. You have a full 7 days to be able to complete the final. So tonight we're going to jump into talking about VirusTotal and being able to submit data to it. But before we do that, we'll go over the assignment from last week. So here I have essentially the code that we provided, right? You didn't have to actually develop any code for this week. I'm going to go ahead and run it. I'm going to run it against ESMP3. Once that runs, it's going to spit out those images to my folder, in this case, my folder being images. And what we see is a couple of them, right? We see at least one that's new, and then we see potentially others that look the same, but one of those are modified. So what we're going to do is use our program. I'll open that up, and then we're going to be able to look at that information. So really though, let's look at what you would have been using. And I got a couple of emails from a couple of people, right? So we see the publisher is JPHS. Okay, that's interesting. We also see that there's a category of encoding, and several people were trying to use rich jet as the phrase. And what we come to find, right, is that it's 2 images. So one for rich, one for jet. So now that we have those images, that's what we're going to do. We're going to utilize both those phrases. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up. We'll do 3 first, and I'm going to skip the exploratory learning that would have been associated with it. In this case, I know that this one is jet. So I'll go ahead and put that phrase in. It's going to ask me what I want to save it as. I'm going to save it as jet.jpg rather. And then we'll go look at that directory and we see that image. Okay, so I like to, between using JPHS, close it out and open it back up. It is a pretty finicky program, or it could be. So I'll go back through. This time I'll select 4. Same thing, we'll do seek. The other one was jet. This one's going to be rich. And I'll put that in. It's going to ask me about what we want to call it. And what the heck, we'll go ahead and call it rich, because that was the password. It's a text file. So then we'll open that up and we see essentially a number of well-known people and then their net worth. And that was all that was being asked. So for the assignment, you had no code that you were going to write. You were going to execute that, get this information, write somewhat of a technical report, and then offer any suggestions to make the code better. So I'll pause here, see if we got any questions. Okay, so nothing heard. So this week we have virus total, right? This is pretty short in nature. We only have like 7 slides. So what is virus total? It definitely is a website, virustotal.com, and it utilizes or has the ability for us to utilize what's called APIs, right? Application interfaces. And this allows us in a systematic method to be able to interact with an application. VirusTotal is a platform. It was acquired by Google back in 2012, and to this date is still owned by them. We can access it by navigating to virustotal.com. For us to interact with it as is through the graphical user interface, we don't need an account. We can literally navigate out to VirusTotal and specify some data that we want to upload. And just for the sake of showing the example, I navigated over to virustotal.com, and this is what we'll see. We could upload a file for them to analyze. However, from a cybersecurity perspective, I would not agree or advise doing that. There's some risks that are associated with it, from being able to tip off an attacker, which I won't go into here because this is not a course on that. However, we can specify URLs that we would want to get a better understanding of. So if I put in google.com, actually, it's not going to let me do that. Okay, let's put and it comes back and it tells me it is clean. Now, just because it says overall it's clean doesn't mean it's overall clean. And you'll notice it says 0 of 85. 85, well, because there's roughly 85 different antivirus or cybersecurity detection platforms that this gets submitted to. And if all of them come back and say, nope, it's clean, then the assessment from VirusTotal is, well, it's clean. In some cases, you'll get 10%, 20%, 70%, some random percentage of companies or entities that come back and say that it's either clean or malicious. But nonetheless, this is more like a tipping and queuing, and isn't a just because VirusTotal said it was bad, it's bad. We also have some other details associated with it. As you can see, the categorization of it, we see some history. So it looks like the first time this URL was submitted for analysis was back in 2021, just shy of a year ago, or just over a year ago. And then the last analysis that they did on it was roughly 6 days later. This is all prior to me submitting it right now. We got the public facing IP address. We get a little bit other information associated with it as well. There's some links that it's able to pull. And then based upon if I was logged in and there were comments, based upon having an account, we can write comments associated about it. Hey man, this is a false positive, or yep, I'm starting to see this in a new campaign that's happening. But this is all from a GUI perspective, graphical user interface. That may not be what you want to use on a daily basis, specifically if you're trying to do more than one submission of sorts. That's where we're going to get into the API. And for us to do that, the platform itself is free. However, and actually getting an API is also free. However, there are limitations that we'll have to follow when using the program, or that are imposed on us when using the program. I don't know what the number is. However, there's a daily limit as far as how many submissions you could do to the platform via API. So we just need to be cognizant of that. Now, whatever that number is, it isn't something like, 20 or 30. So for the purpose of the course, we're not going to have a problem. However, in real life, you're not going to be able to sit there and just submit thousands and thousands of hashes, domains, or anything else on the free API aspect. For the assignment this week, you will need an API key. You'll need to get your own API key. Information about getting that key is at the link listed before you. Now, the key is free. However, you don't want to have it in such a place where people can see it and use it in anything else. So that's why this week, as we go through it, you'll see that I obfuscate and hide the key that I would use. However, when you get your key, use it locally on your machine or in the VLE. But when you submit the code, please don't leave your key in there. At that point, it would be, in theory, a compromise. Some of you may not use VirusTotal enough to feel like it would be compromised, but it certainly is not good practice to then allow a person to submit samples to VirusTotal under the pretense that it is certainly you when it's not. Okay, so utilizing VirusTotal within Python, there's a library for that. And as you can guess, it's already installed within the VLE. If you want to use this library outside of the VLE on your personal computer, you can go out to PyPy and download and install, or you can just pip install it. But for the purposes of the VLE, it is already there. So let's walk through this VirusTotal demonstration. We're going to talk about how the program works. We'll talk a little bit about the library, and you'll see certainly how easy it is. So for that purpose, let's get rid of that. We'll come in here, and I have a VirusTotal demo, example. So in here, notice how we leave out the VirusTotal key. All right, cool. So starting from the top here, this is going to be pretty simplistic in nature, this example. However, we import JSON, we import hashlib, and then we import the third-party library for VirusTotal. Now, this is the part where you would put in your API key. And what's going to be utilized is called a EI card. This is essentially a test or a string that represents a test of malicious data. It by itself is not malicious. However, it allows us to supply this string and in some cases a file to our detection mechanism to be able to detect whether it is malicious or not. So the sample that we're going to be submitting is going to be binary of a number of things containing that standard antivirus test file. We're then going to get a MD5 hash of it and store it as our sample MD5. We're then going to take the VirusTotal public API, specify our key, and then we're going to create an object called VT. From here, we'll utilize the VT object, call upon the get file report method, supply our MD5 hash, and then that response is going to be stored in a variable called response. And then we're going to be able to utilize JSON with the dumps method to then dump our response. Okay, that is the guts of the sample. So let's run through this utilizing some data or with a actual API key in there. So I'll run this, and this is what we get back. Now, this comes back as a JSON, and that's cool. Now, looking at this, the Panda AV detected it. This is the version of Panda AV, and this is what they know it as, right? So some antiviruses call it one thing while other antiviruses call it something else. The version of the Panda AV that is using, or rather the last time that Panda AV was updated was yesterday or today actually, is utilizing the signature that was uploaded today. AVG, same thing, right? We see the version of AVG, that signature file was updated today. However, Bitdefender, notice how that signature file was updated 2 days ago. Now, they notice, or they call it one thing while this organization calls it something else, while that organization calls it something else. There's, as we've seen, 85 of these. Cool. And then there's some metadata associated with the item down below. But that's it. So you'll be able to take this, utilize your API key, put it in, and then be able to go to town on it. So that brings us to, well, what do we have to do in our assignment this week? Well, pretty simple, or in theory. I supplied a scanfiles.zip file that's in the D2L. That zip file contains 4 items. You're going to create a script, and you can utilize what I've provided as a good shell. You're going to create a script that processes each file in a particular folder, right? In this case, we say target folder. You're also going to generate a MD5 hash of each one of the files. Your script will then submit each hash value to VirusTotal. That data that VirusTotal returns, i.e. what came to the screen, you're going to submit that in a file. So in theory, you're going to submit your script, and then you're going to submit a script file, or excuse me, a report for each one of the 4 items that are in the scanfiles.zip file. Now, it is advised that you don't get to this step and then just go on the screen, copy and paste, and submit it and put it in a file. I will look at your code and be able to tell that. You want your script to, instead of return it to the screen, dump it to a file. All right, so again, you're gonna take the scanfiles.zip, you'll put it in a directory called target. Your script doesn't need to be able to do this. Your script really starts here. It's going to process each file in that target directory, i.e. read it in. It's going to generate an MD5 hash. It's going to, in a programmatic standpoint, submit the hash to VirusTotal, and then it's going to generate the report file on the computer. You can put it back in the target file or target folder. It does not matter. And if you look at what we utilized here for our example, this is the point where I am creating the hash for this string. Now, we've done this on different files before. You'll have to go back and look at some previous assignments, but this is where I'm submitting my key to create that VirusTotal object. And then now that I have that object, this is where I'm utilizing that MD5 hash to go out and get that report. And then I'm simply returning that report. So let me pause here. Let's see if we have any questions or anything for the assignment this week. Okay, awesome. So nothing heard. Let's see here. So our script should save the report as a file? Yes.
Whether that's 3 files or 1 file, just figure out a way to not just output to the screen, output it to something else.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. And then for the sample, try not to give too much. You got to figure out how to work through every single file, basically. Whatever that is in the target, work through that every one and kind of go from there.
Yeah, yeah. If you can do it on 1 file, you should be able to probably, I don't know, loop through them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the only other question, this is for the final, nothing specific. Is it the week after week 15 or is it the next week? Is that like is there an extra week beyond that?
I'm not actually, stand by. Let me look and I will tell you. What week is this? This is 14?
Yeah, because I didn't see, there's some stuff for week 15, but I don't actually see like a submission for a script. So I'm wondering if that's week 15 is the final. That's what I didn't know.
Yeah, so the final, I want to say, is the first week. No, it's due May 4th. So back that up a week. So the 27th, actually, so week 14. Yeah, there's a week after. So we're
Okay.
in week 14. That takes us to the 20th. And then week 15th is from essentially the 20th to the 27th. And then from the 27th to the 4th is when you'll be doing the final.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's all I need to know.
Okay. All right, so if there's no more questions, as always, appreciate you dialing in. Look forward to seeing your results this week. Hope you enjoyed the assignment.
I think TK has a question in the chat, I think.
Okay, go ahead, TK. We'll hold on. No, so nothing about the final should be visible to you. If you feel you saw parts of the final, I would not take that as gospel. On the 27th is when all details will formally be provided to you about the formal. The only thing that I'll do before that is give some pointers as to what you would want to go brush up on. All right, awesome. If there's no more questions, again, thanks everybody for joining in. Take care.
Have a good week.
Same.